A potential legal challenge brewing over the voters list ahead of elections in Guyana. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Thursday, October 17th from the CMC News Center in Bridgetown. I'm Ricardo Roberts. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Government and opposition appointed commissioners at the Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, are at odds over the registration of some voters. The opposition commissioners charge that there are moves to prevent some citizens from casting their ballots in the March 2020 elections, and they're not ruling out taking the matter to the court. We get the details in this report from HGP Nightly News.
According to PPP Commissioner Bibi Shadiq, at least one government commissioner, Charles Corbin, still wants persons who have been registered to verify their registration. Additionally, the commissioner is alleging that there is another push to have some persons deregistered.
Because they didn't go uplift the ID cards, and they know where they're there. Well, you know what the law says? There are two ways in which you can take people off the register. If they die, and you can prove that, or if they're gone crazy.
She added that it would appear as though the pro-government commissioners are afraid of people going and vote.
They're afraid of people going and vote. So they're trying the hardest they can to get as many people as they can not to exercise their franchise. You can't disenfranchise people. And that's a battle I will fight to the last breath.
Any move to bar persons from not voting, according to Shadiq, will be challenged in the courts. But according to government-appointed Commissioner Vincent Alexander, there are no plans to deregister anyone.
The invitation to electors who did not participate in the house-to-house exercise, whose names are on the preliminary list, to come forward and do a verification. Which verification, if not done, could result in their names being highlighted on the eventual voters list. So there will be no deletion of names, but the names may be highlighted.
Another matter before the Commission is what should be done regarding the thousands of persons who, since 2008, have not uplifted their ID cards. The consensus, according to Alexander, is to do everything to contact those persons, with the contentious issue being not to place their names on the final voters list.
Meantime, President David Granger has confirmed that he has held talks with leader of the Liberty and Justice Party, the LJP, on how the fledgling political party and his coalition can work together. Granger leads the governing Five Party, a Partnership for National Unity, APNU. Now, speaking to reporters on Wednesday, he said APNU is ready to welcome other parties that share its objectives to develop Guyana. And as we hear in this report from Newsroom's Isanele Patois, Granger says that's the basis of his talks with Lennox Schumann, presidential candidate of the LJP, which was formed in January this year.
I've had preliminary exploratory talks with Mr. Schumann. We are looking for common ground. We're looking for areas of convergence.
The president explained that the policy of APNU is inclusivity, and they are ready to welcome other parties who share their objectives to develop Guyana. He said there is no final agreement as yet with Schumann's party.
Mr. Schumann has given me the assurance that there are areas of convergence between the Liberty and Justice Party, LJP, and what he thinks the APNU stands for. So we have not actually come to any agreement. The talks are exploratory, but he is convinced that there is a wide area of convergence between the policies of our partnership and his party.
On a separate note, when asked if Schumann's dual citizenship was an area of concern, the president said that the dual citizenship has nothing to do with leading a political party.
Dual citizenship has nothing to do with leadership of a political party. It has everything to do with entering the National Assembly or being appointed to the cabinet. And we haven't got it.
Schumann has been a Canadian citizen for approximately 28 years, but is Guyanese by birth. The party leader announced earlier in the year that he had begun the process to relinquish his Canadian citizenship. Chief Justice acting Roxanne George Wiltshire in January this year ruled that the Constitution blocks anyone who holds dual citizenship to be elected to the National Assembly.
Over in Trinidad and Tobago, the main opposition United National Congress, the UNC, is calling on the Electoral and Boundaries Commission to probe almost 1,700 inconsistencies and anomalies in 4 marginal constituencies. More in this report from CNC3's Jesse Ramdeo.
In an official statement, the UNC says it had been conducting its own house-to-house examination of the list of registered voters in each constituency, meeting each voter in person. According to the party's release, during the 4-year exercise, they discovered 1,684 inconsistencies and anomalies within the St. Joseph, Tunapuna, Moruga Tableland, and La Hokata Talparo constituencies. Quote, persons appearing on the list of registered voters were determined as not residing at the given voter address and/or having no historical links to the area. The release goes on to say that despite bringing the inconsistencies to the EBC's attention, the UNC is yet to receive an acknowledgement of its correspondence. The UNC says in light of the local government election carded for Monday, December 2nd, the EBC must carry out a probe into the abnormalities identified. The party is calling for a meeting with the EBC to deal with this and other issues.
Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness says government will relax some of the restrictions under the states of emergency during the Christmas season. He made the announcement in Parliament in response to concerns that the SOEs declared in some areas to combat rising crime would impact vendors and shoppers during the festive season. The Bahamas to call from the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights for government to stop deporting illegal Haitians for now. Now, some residents say the UN agency is out of order, while others agree that there should be a moratorium for reparations. And as immigration took center stage in Parliament, 1 p.m. was adamant the illegal migrants must go. More in this Eyewitness News report.
The debate on illegal migrants continue following Hurricane Dorian. There has been mixed views on the stance government should take on the undocumented. Outspoken Member of Parliament for the Pine Ridge constituency, Frederick McAlpine, said calls to have them remain in the country should be ignored.
And anyone who loves others more than us or wants us to love others more than us is not worthy to be amongst us. My mantra as a Bahamian is Bahamians first. And I mean that in every sense of the word and without any apology.
As for those work permit holders who became unemployed as a result of Dorian and lost everything in the storm, McAlpine said the law must prevail.
The Bahamas is overwhelmed at this time. We are in a state of emergency, and Bahamians are our top priority.
McAlpine also took issue with the disaster relief bill currently being debated, lamenting that before such laws are implemented, he suggests that government ensure that shelters are up to code.
Mr. Speaker, if I have to make a choice between dying at home or dying in a shelter, which one you think I'll choose? Many of the places being used as hurricane shelters are not structurally sound, nor are they elevated to be free from flooding. Mama says you're putting the cart before the horse. Mr. Speaker, it makes no logical sense for me demanding mandatory evacuation without having a safe place to put the evacuees. Mr. Speaker, there's doing no rocket science for this. This is common sense.
You're watching Caribbean Newsline. Still to come, Grenada becomes the first of regional countries to sign a vesting order to facilitate the sale of Scotiabank. Stay with us, more news after this.
Liat's birthday celebration is on with Fair 63. 9 a.m. October 16th to 11:59 p.m. October 18th. 63 hours to book your flight to any Liat destination with our special Fair 63. Terms and conditions apply. Liat, we celebrate 63.
Happy birthday to
Grenada has become the first country to sign a vesting order to facilitate the acquisition of Scotiabank by Republic Financial Holdings Limited. And Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell says he's hoping for a united approach to the sale of the bank. Antiguan Prime Minister Gaston Brown has refused to sign the vesting order, which would finalize the sale of the Antigua-based branch. And the central bank in Guyana blocked the sale of the bank there, saying that if Republic Bank was allowed to take over Scotiabank's operations, it would dominate the banking sector by more than 50%, resulting in a huge risk to Guyanese should something go wrong. We get more in this MTV News report.
It was announced in November last year that Republic Financial Holdings Limited, the parent company of Republic Bank Limited, headquartered in Trinidad with branches across the region, will acquire the assets of Canadian Bank of Nova Scotia in 9 countries. On Wednesday, in the presence of local staff and customers, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell signed the order, making way for the acquisition in Grenada to be completed.
We were concerned about a few areas. We certainly were in touch with the union to ensure that the workers were treated fairly, because that was a fundamental responsibility of the government. The future is, of course, something that we all have to be concerned about. The state of workers and the expansion of the banking system as a whole is something that we all have to be concerned about. But I was also concerned about the taxes that are coming to the government. So I had to make sure from finance standpoint the checks were received. So I'm happy to say that we are about $2 million richer today because money's in the bank.
Country Manager Keith Johnson gave the assurance Republic Bank will continue to honor all previous arrangements of Scotiabank customers.
We know that we are acquiring a very solid institution, and we intend to continue to grow the institution as a joint entity, Republic Bank Grenada Limited, and to honor all contracts, especially contracts of the workers who are still with Scotiabank as an acquisition date, as has been stated previously from day one, as a matter of fact. We look forward to welcoming all the Scotiabank staff from what we call legal day one, the first day of operation as Republic Bank Grenada Limited.
Ahead of the 5th meeting of ACP Ministers of Culture set to get underway in Niger this weekend, a senior CARICOM official says the region is interested in the distribution of €40 million in aid for the cultural sector. The monies are to be shared among the African, Caribbean and Pacific countries, the 3 regions that make up the ACP group. And Hilary Brown, Program Manager for Culture and Community Development at the CARICOM Secretariat, said the regional bloc is interested in influencing how the European Union funds are distributed. Brown told the CMC's Kennington Chance, who is covering the meeting in the West African nation, that it is very hard to get resources for culture in the ACP countries. But she said several CARICOM culture programs could benefit from an injection of resources.
So naturally there, I think, is a great deal of interest in influencing how that is to be deployed and understanding the mechanisms so that the Caribbean can benefit significantly from those resources. As we know, it's very hard to get resources for culture in our regions. Our ministers of culture at their most recent meeting in June in Guyana had indicated a very strong interest in putting forward a regional proposal to fund our various cultural projects in CARICOM, not least of which is resources to implement the regional development strategy that we have for culture, supporting CARIFESTA, expanding the regional fund for culture that has been launched with the Caribbean Development Bank, And so there are a number of regional projects that are sort of on hold or could be implemented better, but we need the resources. We're particularly interested in taking a regional approach with the funding because we feel there needs to be more equity in the way that resources are distributed and accessed by the 3 regions. And so we really are very keen on advancing a viable modality for providing resources regionally to the three ACP regions.
Brown spoke to CMC on Thursday after day 1 of the 2 days of preparatory meetings by technical officials ahead of the meeting of ministers at the weekend. And ahead in sport, questions being raised about the appointment of Miles Bascombe to the West Indies men's selection panel. Stay with us. Sport is next.
When you think of what we went through with Hurricane Irma, you had to be able to recognize what are the things we need to do to cope with the aftermath. The psychological trauma, to me, is probably the most telling on a lot of people.
Preparedness is the key. So when people are prepared, when people have what their resources in terms of how they can cope with the disaster, they're better able to be able to return to their normal life. They're better able to make decisions that are informed for themselves and for their family, and then for their community. Be ready. Look, listen, and link.
Gun violence, especially mass shootings, are an ongoing threat in our society. What have we learned from these events which can help us prevent further crises of this nature?
Well, sadly, each one of these events is a major learning opportunity. And what we've learned is we need to look way beyond the traditional warning signs. We've actually begun to identify warning behaviors that tell us when someone's on the pathway to a mass shooting event.
Let me go to Voltage because Voltage is new. So let me ask Voltage, what is the worst date you ever went out on?
Well, I met this girl on Instagram, right?
Instagram?
Yeah. We had a little thing going. So, like, we talk for like...
What's up, Spartan?
I'm good, man.
You all right?
Augusta, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about last week. Well, no, let's flash back to season 1 because he was a competitor in season 1. So let's talk about your journey, your growth and your development from season 1.
Well, falling out of season 1, give me more determination and more energy to come back in season 2 and take over still.
Fast bowling legend Sir Andy Roberts has questioned the appointment of Miles Bascombe to the West Indies men's selection panel. He believes the former Windward Islands batsman should have withdrawn himself from consideration, having been a member of the recent Cricket West Indies task force that led an overhaul of regional selection policy. Sir Andy contended that Bascombe did not possess enough first-class experience to sufficiently qualify him for the role he now occupies alongside former test-off spinner Roger Harper and newly appointed head coach Phil Simmons. The outspoken former Windies coach was speaking on Voice of Barbados' Mason and Guest program.
I have a problem first that he was a member of the task force that sit down to go around the countries to choose, look into who they take as selectors and develop a policy. So he's been part and parcel of it. He doesn't have enough first-class cricket experience in the region. He may have played, yes. But as far as experience goes to be one of the 2 selectors, no. I have a problem with that. And my biggest problem is that he, as a member of the task force, should have, even though he wasn't involved in putting his name, he should have withdrawn being a member of the task force.
Now, Bascom's appointment came as a surprise, especially considering his tepid playing career, which included 24 first-class matches at an average of 21 and a single T20 international for West Indies against England 8 years ago. But CWI President Dr. Kishore Shallow, who chaired the interview panel during the recruitment process for selectors, defended Bascom's appointment, arguing that the process had been a robust one that had seen the former player pass every test put before him.
The recruitment process was as robust as you could actually imagine, whereas it is the first time in our history of a sign-up, appointed or recruited selectors in this manner. One of the first things we did, identify a group of players based on interviews and feedback from persons across the region. You know, Miles' name surfaced through that process. Some 20 persons were put forward and approved by the board. They were then asked, we then wrote to them, inviting them, asking of their interest and availability.
Meanwhile, all-rounder Dwayne Bravo believes Cricket West Indies selectors made the right call in dropping his younger brother, Darren Bravo, from the squad against Afghanistan. He believes Darren needs the time away from the pitch to get himself back in good form. In this CNC3 News report by Ryan Baytru, the Trinidadian also spoke about the Trinbago Knight Riders' performance in the recently concluded Caribbean Premier League.
Dwayne Bravo hardly ever shies away from discussing West Indies cricket. But on Thursday, the topic hit home.
Was it the best choice to not include him in the Afghan squad?
Maybe it's the right choice at this time. I think the Afghanistan in India is one test match, a few one-days. You know, Darren haven't been the batsman that we all expect and want to see him performance-wise, and sometimes you know, you need that moment for yourself to go back into the basics.
He labeled it the quote-unquote right choice to drop his smaller brother Darren from the West Indies squad for the Afghanistan series.
Maybe not being selected, it will hurt him, and he now will be more determined to come back, and the hunger is going to come back.
But while Darren Bravo has been dropped, his friend and colleague Kieran Pollard will officially assume the role of West Indies white ball captain, a call Bravo himself made 2 months ago on the same show.
They both have a very good relationship, professional relationship, and that is what is needed in the cricket. And the selection panel is honest and you know, looking to give everyone opportunities and not just saying, okay, this one no longer can play and this one can play.
In praising the West Indies picks of Dinesh Ramdin and Lendell Simmons, Bravo himself was left to watch TKR tumble out of the CPL from the sidelines. But he ruled the injuries and inconsistencies the team faced, hardly blaming Captain Pollard for the defeat.
You know, at the end of the day, everyone will compare both of us, leadership-wise, because I have so much success with the team. And this was Pollard's first season. I think it's unfair for people to compare.
Now, in the twilight of his career, the DJ is playing a different tune.
Staying with cricket, West Indies cricket legend Brian Charles Lara will be among more than 100 cricket legends who will suit up for a T20 series which will be played in India to promote road safety. HGP's Jaden Samuels has the details in this report.
Sachin Tendulkar, Brian Lara, Virender Sehwag and Muttiah Muralitharan are among the big names to feature in a T20 tournament aimed at promoting road safety. This tournament is called the Road Safety World Series. Some other prominent names that are set to be part of the tournament include Jack Callis, Brett Lee, and Shivnarine Chanderpaul. According to ESPN Cricinfo, the first season of the tournament will be played in 2020 between February 2 and 16 in Mumbai and will feature the following teams: India legends, Australia legends, South Africa legends, Sri Lanka legends and West Indies legends. It is understood that a total of 110 players, all retired, have confirmed their participation in the tournament, which would be based on the franchise model prevailing across domestic T20 league around the world. The participating teams have been restricted to only test playing countries for the first season. Tendulkar will be returning to play cricket in front of a crowd for the third time since his retirement in 2013. Jaden Samuel.
And over to football now. Jamaican Dane Kelly struck a half-time brace to take his goal tally for the season to 10 as Indy 11 edged Swoop Park Rangers 2-1 to close out their United Soccer League regular season campaign with their second win in 3 outings on Wednesday night. The encounter at the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis remained goalless at the break but came to life on resumption when Kelly struck in the 56th minute and Wilson Harris equalized a minute later, but Kelly was on target again in the 67th minute to put on the hosts ahead for good and assure them a third-place finish in the Eastern Conference standings and at least one home game in the upcoming playoffs. They ended on 63 points, narrowly behind leaders Pittsburgh Riverhounds on 65 and second-placed Nashville SC 64, both of whom have won 4 of their last 5 in unbeaten runs. The defeat for Rangers was their third straight one and left them rock bottom on 26 as one of 7 teams eliminated from playoff contention. Stay with us. That's the sport. We'll be right back.
This is just 10th year you guys are celebrating. Why did you feel the need to start the festival 10 years ago?
It's for the people of Montego Bay. We saw a need, it was lacking. We didn't have a lot of events going on in Montego Bay, a lot of family events at that. And our festival is primarily for the family and for the people of Montego Bay, so why not? That is why we started.
But what about the jerk? Because, people know Jamaica for jerk, but they know other festivals in other areas are synonymous with the jerk. What makes your festival unique? Again, the major developments of this day, a potential legal challenge brewing over the voters list ahead of the elections in Guyana. And in sports, fast bowling legend Sir Andy Roberts has questioned the appointment of Miles Bascombe to the West Indies men's selection panel. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news on sports round the clock, subscribe to CaribNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision TV and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good night.